The Fairy Tale World of Roman Shustrov. Film 2. Overcoming the Red Zone. Here is our future theatre boulevard. The St. Petersburg State Committee for the Control, Use and Preservation of Historical and Cultural Monuments says that it is an architecturally complete composition and it is forbidden to tamper with it by adding sculptures or other objects. Here it is, this architecturally complete composition. Let's take a walk and look at it. A statue of poet Alexander Blok is supposed to stand here. That makes sense because his museum, his apartment, and the apartment of his mother are nearby. So, this is the view that the statue is not supposed to block. Sometimes in history, a person appears who by their presence, communication skills, creativity, fantasies, love for the city and for the people who inhabit it, spiritualize this city. It leads to a kind of dialogue between the city and the person, a dialogue which becomes alive and creative. And when that person passes away, the city is orphaned. As if the supervision is over, the circulatory system of boulevards and squares, streets and embankments starts to work less efficiently. We, the friends and family of Roman Shustrov, a talented artist and sculptor, find it extremely hard to accept his departure because we are also orphaned. The insidious COVID-19 disease did not spare the creator of the famous St. Petersburg Angel. So it was impossible for several weeks after Roman's death to even approach the bronze old man sitting on a bench in a St. Petersburg park to bring him flowers. This only makes sharper the memory and pain for a man who loved the cozy corners of the old city, who could spend time staring into reflections in puddles, study patterns formed by pigeon droppings, and seriously consider birds as participants in the artistic life of the city. Once a collective exhibition in a gallery in St. Petersburg main thoroughfare, Nevsky Prospect, was organized under the name Pigeons in the City. His exhibit was a series of photographs featuring the adorable traces of pigeon life that he found on the asphalt of the streets. This is a pigeon. It is a St. Petersburg artist. It draws small ballerinas on the asphalt. I believe this pigeon is my friend. Roman is famous for making sculptured dolls, but he did not only create dolls, he drew pictures and made graphics. He observed carefully, showing great curiosity in people, in characters, in the shapes of houses, in the shadows and silhouettes. He was in no hurry, walking around the historical St. Petersburg suburb of Kolomna, which he came to love in his quest for interesting views. Sometimes he invited friends to go with him on his walks, and he shared his plans. He often relaxed in the New Holland area close to the famous Mariinsky Theatre. It was transformed from a series of warehouses into a popular city park in recent years. He considered this park a model that should be imitated. Its clean, sheltered, green zone with cafes, playgrounds for children, and adult walks represented the beautiful urban living that Roman dreamed of and wanted to see everywhere in St. Petersburg. He was worried about today's youth. Where do the vandals who damage things come from in our city? I don't know. They probably copy others and do the same, possibly because of alcohol or drug abuse. Here is an angel in the street, created by an artist. People love him, and if your friends, for example, came and smashed him, would you be indifferent? Would you be against it? Upset? Or would you like it? I would be upset and against it. Thank you very much for your sincere answer. All the best. He wondered how young people can and want to perceive St. Petersburg's cultural heritage. Roman often used the phrase, humanitarian disaster. It sounded extreme. Many were even afraid to use such a definition. However, Roman insisted on it. He seemed to perceive that a process of erasing memories had been launched. He suffered because cultural traditions were being destroyed. It is especially disappointing that this is happening in one of Russia's most beautiful cities, where an incredible number of scientists, inventors, poets, writers and artists lived and worked for the glory of science and culture. No longer is every corner on the cultural map of St. Petersburg marked. Buildings often have too little information about their former inhabitants. All the staff of the committees and even many of my friends and artists say to me, "Roman Ivanich, you are making a fuss, and it's useless. And a boulevard of small city cultures and objects dedicated to famous people would quickly disappear. It would be smashed up, vandalized, stolen. Go back to your studio and sit quietly and peacefully. Do your work and don't stick your neck out." I am categorically against this point of view. I don't accept it as not possible to change anything. If we have lost several generations of our people, have let this lout culture thrive in our lives, it is clear where this came from, then we could lose all of our cultural heritage. This is a real humanitarian disaster, and we will all become extinct. We will be gobbled by new generations of people with little culture. To his mind, the city has too few small sculptures that create comfort in squares and in the streets. There are few monuments, memorial plaques, old posters and signs reminiscent of the past. So Roman thought up a project called Theatre Boulevard, a short, about 120-metre strip at the very end of Dekabristov Street. Until recently, Roman lived and worked nearby in the apartment block named Fairytale House. He had an incredible appreciation for this place. You can see what the building looked like before World War II. Architect Alexander Bernardazzi invested romantic and national elements in the style of the house. Its residents included ballerina Anna Pavlova, the creator of Russian Arabic Studies academician Ignatius Krachkovsky, the singer Yevgenia Bronskaya, and sculptor Matvey Maniza. The house was badly damaged in the war, and after restoration in Stalinist times it lost its individuality. Roman thought God himself ordered that Theatre Boulevard be arranged near the Fairytale House. The median strip of the boulevard is virtually empty and is loved only by flocks of pigeons. It leads directly to 3 theatre venues: to the Mariinsky Concert Hall, the new stage of the Mariinsky, and the Mariinsky's historical stage. Roman dreamed of installing benches with sculptures here. Example of these ideas can be found in many European cities. He wanted to illuminate the boulevard with 19th century lanterns, put up a theatrical poster pillar, similar to the one outside the Mariinsky, and stands with information about events dating back a century and about famous people who lived in the Kolomna suburb. Bloch lived in a corner house near the Pryazhka River for many years. It now houses his museum. Leopold Auer, the creator of the Russian violin school, lived in a nearby house. Other residents included entomologist and zoologist Mikhail Rimsky-Korsakov, the poet and playwright Innokenty Arninsky, and the opera singer and teacher Ivan Yershov. Nearby were the apartments of the famous Russian actress Vera Komisarjevskaya, theatre director Vsevolod Meyerhold, artist of the Russian art school Mir Iskuvst Mstislav Dobuzhinsky, opera and concert singer Lubov Andreeva Delmas, Bloch's favorite. By the way, according to Roman, an image of Delmas surprisingly corresponds to the sculptural appearance of the elderly lady with a dog, who carries an old-fashioned handbag in which a volume of Bloch poems seems to be hiding. Roman called this old lady the cultural code of St. Petersburg. An elderly lady knows poems by heart. She is an example of the bearer of the noble traditions of the St. Petersburg intelligentsia. She is the one who can pass on cultural inheritance to new generations. The idea was born to install a sculpture of an old lady on a pedestal on Theatre Boulevard. Roman began to frequent the corridors of officials and to write letters to different authorities. As a result of numerous appeals, the artist received from the city chief several categorical refusals of any changes in the boulevard area. Officials insisted that the boulevard is originally inscribed as a red zone, a zone in which changes are prohibited, while the area is already supposedly oversaturated with cultural objects. Permission can be obtained only for the installation of a statue of Alexander Blok. The only thing the executives approved was paving the boulevard. Curious things are happening in St. Petersburg. Suddenly, a modern building pops up in an ensemble of old buildings, completely contradicting these places in style and spirit. Examples are the Steklyashka, a disdainful nickname for the word glass, which people use for the Business and Trade Center Regent Hall in Vladimirsky Prospect, or the pompous business center Senator in Petrogradka, or the Red Stars Hotel made of glass and concrete on the Pryazhka River near the boulevard, very much within the red zone. And here Roman did not even ask for the area to be redesigned architecturally, certainly not the construction of new buildings or the development of new facilities, only the ennobling of the already existing boulevard. What is this? Is it not a humanitarian disaster in the heads of officials? It seemed to take an eternity to choose a place for everyone's beloved little bronze old man, the St. Petersburg Angel, who won the city sculpture competition in 2012. Roman wanted to install the angel in the Tauride Garden area, one of the artist's favorite places. Roman grew up nearby in Tchaikovsky Street. He lived here in house number 36. It was not a family flat. A family of 4 occupied only 2 tiny rooms in a communal apartment with several other families occupying other rooms. But these memories warmed his soul. A typical cozy old courtyard and internal passages within the apartment block. Roman loved the Taurine Garden, the Neva embankment, the area around Letany Prospect, and the people taking a stroll there. And every year on his birthday on July 30, he and his wife Maria went on a familiar walk in places dear to his heart, and he told her stories from his childhood. The city bosses advised Roman to look out for another area because the area around the garden was considered architecturally complete. After painstaking searches, a location was finally chosen. Near St. Petersburg Historical Kolomna suburb, about 800 meters from its borders, there is the cozy Izmailovsky Garden next to the Youth or Molodozhny Theatre on Fontanka. The theatre agreed, and a bronze angel settled on the back of the park bench. Initially, the angel came under serious pressure from vandalism. The old man's umbrella was broken more than once. But now it seems people visiting the angel have become more protective of him, and this gave Roman hope that culture could be slowly but surely restored. After officials rejected Roman's ideas for Theatre Boulevard, Roman took a further step, literally and figuratively, across the Bunny Bridge to Matisov Island. His walks along the Pryazhka River drew his attention to this island and to a beautiful 3-story 19th century building. It turned out the mansion had been built for the map-making institution of the brothers Alexei and Afinogen Ilyins. After the revolution, the profile of the institution was preserved. Only the word military was added to the name. Today the building is partially leased to culture-related organizations, and Roman was very pleased. Here there is not just a boulevard to be created, but a whole island of culture. The island of artisans. A school of theatre, animation and cinema for children known as TAC became the first ally of the artist in the creation of the project, the Island of Artisans. Roman even conducted a presentation of the project in the TAC premises in February 2020. And most importantly, the zone is considered purple. That is, you can change the appearance of the place. Roman went deep inside the island. Matisov Island turned out to be rather small. Several residential buildings, a hostel, 2 modern hotels, some buildings owned by the Russian post office, and abandoned or still operating workshops. 2/3 of the area of the island is occupied by the Admiralty shipyards. Where bathhouses once stood, a petrol station now operates. In general, Matisov Island looks neglected and dull. But after all, if one finds investors and gets the city authorities interested in new tourist sites and routes, the appearance of the island can be changed. Moreover, cultural interest in the place is high. One can often find groups of people on walks to enjoy the island. In the context of the cultural, craft and industrial past of the region, Roman planned to create a major socio-educational art centre with workshops of artists, graphic artists, sculptors, painters, masters of decorative and applied genres, film and design artists who could work there, teach young people and adults, organise art festivals on a large open space and conduct charity projects. The more details Roman learned about the history of the island, the more significant its role in the life of St. Petersburg seems to be. On early Swedish maps of the 17th century, the island appears under the name Kalasari, or Fish Island. Here stood once the Finnish Chukonskaya village, where retired pilots settled. After the founding of the city in 1703, the island received special strategic importance since enemy Swedish ships took this path from the Gulf of Finland. The legend has survived that the Finnish miller Martius, who gave his name to the island, would watch the approach of enemies from his mill and warn Peter the Great about it. One of the palaces of Peter the Great, named the Podzor Palace, was once located near the island. Today the Podzor Bridge is a reminder of its existence. In 1837, spinning workshops were organised on the island. The name of the Pryazhka River is derived from the verb pryast, meaning to weave. Peter the Great ordered the creation of the first maps of the city in 1720. They were made on the island by one of Germany's largest engraving cartographers, Martius Soiter, yet another Martius. Later, the Scottish engineer and industrialist Charles Baird built a big metalworks factory on the island. Many of the metal components of St. Petersburg's famous landmark architectural monuments were cast at the Baird factory, including structural details of the St. Isaac and Kazan cathedrals, the spans of St. Petersburg's suspension bridges, the Alexandrinsky column, and even the angel figure which crowns the column. Baird was also the creator of the first steamship in Russia. In 1846, a pedestrian bridge connecting Matisov and Kolomna Islands was named after Baird. Matisov Island can and should be revived. That was Roman Shustrov's idea and dream. Even if the industrial workshops remain, it is possible to establish cooperation. Experienced engineers could well teach teenagers how to make models of ships, boats, steamboats. And the psychiatric hospital building named after St. Nicholas the Miracle Worker, which occupies a large area on the banks of Pryazhka, is also very much in line with the idea of the island of artisans. The psychiatric hospital, built in 1840 as a correctional and workhouse, also has its own cultural component. Its patients at different times were famous Russian poet Daniel Kams, future Nobel Literature laureate Joseph Brodsky, and rock musician Viktor Tsoi. An important part of the history of the island were secret parties in Alexander Blok Street in the 1970s, where talented artists of Russian underground art movements gathered. Many of them are still alive and working. Roman imagined building a replica of the old Finnish mill, which would contain a museum and bakery. The mill was to become the visually dominant feature of the island. He dreamed of opening a wharf to the Neva and creating a replica of a Swedish combat frigate for excursions on the Gulf of Finland. The project could become a large international program, significant for the whole city. The project today has been left without its inspirer, but we don't want the project to disappear, to be forgotten about, as if it had never been. We must believe that it will continue. Who are we? We are Roman's friends, his relatives, like-minded people, artists, sculptors, architects, developers, and, we hope, potential investors and philanthropists. And as for the lady with the dog, she has already found a place. Walking around Kolomna, Roman once discovered a small square at the intersection of Labutin Street and Priadilny Lane. In the centre of the square there is a flower bed. On it is a metal composition with birds, the work of unknown craftsmen of the 1990s. Visitors to the square have little love for this structure. It is not aesthetic and it is pretty broken. The project to install a sculpture of the lady with the dog in this square, which Roman initiated with the help of journalist Yelena Tolshikina and her husband Kirill Kazachinsky, recently became one of the winners of the all-Russian competition of small city sculpture named Cultural Footprint. It now remains to convince officials who once again refer to the so-called red zone who are in no hurry to give an affirmative answer to the installation of Roman's work. Nevertheless, we really hope that the cultural code of Roman Shustrov will find its place on the map of St. Petersburg Kolomna, and perhaps the nameless square will one day be named after our fabulous sculptor who dreamed of a beautiful, intelligent and friendly St. Petersburg.